Tonight we are joined in the studio by Congresswoman Tammy Duckworth, representing the 8th Congressional District. And it's so good to see you back on the show.
It's great to be here, Paul.
Well, you spent so much time in Washington, and we don't get to see you a lot, but you're in town and you came here. Yeah. I want to start with the news of the day.
Okay.
Eric Holder announced a new policy by the Justice Department that he's going to go easier on minor drug crimes, doesn't want to have mandatory sentencing and minimum sentences for them. To me, it sounds like President Obama's second-term agenda, where he can do some things he always believes in but couldn't take a chance first time around. What do you think?
Well, you know, I think that the statistics have shown that the way we are punishing some of these crimes is not working for us. We have some of the highest incarceration rates of the developed nations around the world. I am a little bit cynical about some of these alternatives, so I'm going to wait and make sure that there are local inputs, you know, state and community inputs, as well as some sort of a metrics for measuring the outcomes.
It remains to be seen.
Yeah.
Now, you're home for 5 weeks, and you're here. Obviously, it's about talking to people. You and I were talking before, and I said, you know, how are those town halls doing that so many Congress people do? And you said, well, you don't do town halls. You do something a little more one-on-one with people.
I do. I do Congress on your corners. I just did 3 last week. We sit down. I go to your local supermarket. I go to your CVS. I was at CVS on Saturday. And people can actually sit down one-on-one and look me in the eye and ask me questions. And there's a way for me to be able to talk to each individual constituent. And I think at the CVS we had like 45 people show up. Wow. So it was really good interaction.
So, and what are you hearing? I mean, you know, to listen to Republicans, Obamacare is the forefront of everybody's mind. Is that what you're hearing?
I get questions on Obamacare, and there's a lot of confusion in terms of how to sign up for it. Will I qualify for it? Can I keep my health care? A lot of those questions will be answered by the Department of Health and Human Services and the navigators, according to the state navigators. A lot of questions are really about student loans, and my kids are going to college. How can I afford that? And overall, it's just about jobs and the economy.
So, as you know, you've been a part of 40 congressional votes trying to repeal Obamacare. It passes, but it ain't going anywhere. What is the, you know, President Obama in his press conference last week said he just doesn't understand why Republicans have made it their main agenda to undo health care. Is there anything to be worried about with regard to Obamacare?
Well, I think there are some problems. I think that if you talk to restaurant owners and business owners, small business owners of retail chains, there are some pressures on them that we need to fix those problems with Obamacare. But there are great things in the program. There are children with pre-existing conditions have been covered for a while now. Women are covered, and you know, it's not a pre-existing condition to be a woman anymore. I think there's a lot of adults who have pre-existing conditions. I'm one of them, you know, who will be covered come January. And I think those are all good things. But we also have to be realistic that there are bad parts that we need to fix.
And the president has stepped in by holding off on employer mandates, those kind of pieces. You know, one of the things he said in his press conference was, look, what I'd like to do is go to Congress and have them pass some bills and amend it, yep. But we're not in normal times. I'm guessing he's right. There's nothing he could get Congress to modify.
Well, not right now, I don't think. I mean, I would love to be able to modify it. I'll work with anyone, you know, who loves this country as much as I do, and I'll talk to anyone about fixing it. I'm first to say that Obamacare is flawed and it needs to be fixed, but let's save the good parts and fix the bad.
Now, if the Republicans have learned anything from the last election, it was that they better get their head on straight with regard to immigration. Mm-hmm. I mean, look, you know, scoring as lowly as they did with regard to Latino votes and all of that, it seemed to be clear that that was going to happen, and that will happen this time around. The Senate passed a bill, and as again the president said before he left for vacation, look, it's giving Republicans in the House everything they want. You know, you're there, you're talking to these folks. What's their issue?
Well, I think that there's some folks who just do not want the pathway to citizenship. They just not want
even with border security,
even with
border
security, they just do not want the pathway to citizenship. And I'm concerned with this talk of the pathway to legality, because then you would have a whole class of people here who don't have the rights of other Americans, and they may be legal, but they will never have a chance to be citizen. I think that we need comprehensive reform, and it's not just me. My constituents, I held a round table. I had 38 organizations show up, from the ACLU to the Chambers of Commerce, to my mayors, to religious organizations, to schools, and they all said the same thing. Make sure it's comprehensive and make sure there's a pathway to citizenship.
Is there any hope for it if, as Speaker Boehner has said, he'll do it and he'll do it piece by piece? I mean, do you have any hope if it is done that way? Will there be progress that way?
I think that is a cynical ploy to kill it. I think that is a cynical ploy to keep anything from happening. There is a bill that is being worked on right now, a bipartisan bill. Luis Gutierrez from Illinois is one of the leaders on that. 4 Republicans, 4 Democrats have been working on it for well over a year, and the Republicans have been working on it with Mr. Boehner's approval. we should be voting on that. Bring that up for a vote. It's more conservative than the Senate one, but bring that up for a vote, and that would pass, I think.
What about your Republican colleagues from Illinois, Peter Roskam, Aaron Schock? I mean, Roskam, of course, is part of the leadership, so he's going to have to stand behind them. But have you had discussions with Aaron Schock, and do you see any sort of flexibility in some of those Republicans on this issue?
I've not had those conversations with Aaron Schock. I hope that there is some flexibility. Just the fact that there are Republicans on that bipartisan working group gives me hope. I really, really hope that they allow it to come up for a vote.
Do you sense being in Congress, this is your first term,
yes.
and you know, all of us political pundits are out there talking about the fact that Republicans just want to block the president at every turn. Is that what you're experiencing? I mean, when you're there, are you having thoughtful conversations with Republicans who say, look, here's the problem I have with this bill, or are you having a sense that said, sort of, if the president wants it, we just have to kill it?
Well, I don't think it's quite like that. I do think that there is definitely that move. I sit on the Government Oversight and Reform Committee, and there is some of that going on in that committee. But then, you know, I find Republicans to work with. In fact, Representative Kinzinger and I'm co-sponsoring one of his bills to reinvest in manufacturing. And so it's bipartisan. And I am actually, believe it or not, co-sponsoring Mr. Roskam, one of his bills.
Ah.
Yeah.
There's an unexpected pair.
Right, yeah. I tell people that we buried the hatchet, but not in each other's backs.
All right. I love it.
But so there is chance for bipartisanship, and we just have to be willing to work together and compromise.
And by the way, we are going to talk about manufacturing and education.
Yeah.
Lots of things I know are important on your agenda. We're going to take a break now, but when we come back, you asked, Congressman Duckworth will give you an answer. We'll take your questions after the break. Stay with us.